can't believe I haven't got a Star Wars t-shirt here. Where are they? Oh, they must all be at Laura's. Oh, Quentin Tarantino one is alright, I guess. Hello. May the Force be with you. I'm Zach, and today I'm finally getting around to reviewing Star Wars The Bad Batch. The Bad Batch cast of rogue trooper clones were introduced first in the final season of Star Wars The Clone Wars.
Test is in order. 5 enhanced clones, more capable than an army. Yet they exhibit a concerning level of disobedience and disregard for orders.
What else you got? Give me more!
A season we all thought as Clone Wars fans that we would never get. I mean, considering the quality of Star Wars Rebels, though very good writing, the animation was... I didn't like it. I know that they were going for the Quarry aesthetic. I think they kind of used Quarry as an out, as a justification. Oh, we're going with the designs and the look of Quarry, that blocky look, and, you know, the image I'm going to share with you, it doesn't justify anything. Anakin Skywalker and a cheap knockoff Anakin Skywalker toy you get from a pound shop. The styles differed to a great degree, and even though they are their own series, it's still the Dave Filoni show. Dave Filoni has taken that torch of Star Wars and is a conduit through which George Lucas, in so many ways, he is George Lucas's apprentice, now made master, and in so many ways he is still the connective tissue to Lucas, and to ensure that a lot of Lucas's implementations in wanting to get television series, whether live action or animated, up and going, to explore and extend and explode out in his world. Dave Filoni works as that conduit. When George Lucas sold Star Wars, it was kind of undone with it. But Filoni, in so many ways, is like, I still need you, George. Star Wars still needs you. Half the time in the special features, it's like, oh, George, here's come into the Lucasfilm environments that you used to own, and we're humouring you. It's quite heartbreaking when Lucas came in and he saw the technological advancements, and he's like, this is what I needed for the Star Wars prequels. And Dave Filoni's like, yeah, but it's better. And Lucas is like, you can see in his face, I want to use this technology. But no way will he return to Star Wars as a director or as a writer. Definitely not as a writer. So Dave Filoni is working as a conduit.
As a what?
Conduit.
A con what?
Conduit. He spent many years developing many different assets and different properties and different extenuations of the Star Wars mythos, coming off of Star Wars Revenge of the Sith. There were so many things that are now, only almost 7 years after Kathleen Kennedy's presidency as, you know, the keeper of the keys of everything Star Wars and Lucasfilm related. Finally, it's come to this place where Dave Filoni is, you know, respected, admired, and listened to.
Prequels, I thought, were almost an impossible task. How do you tell the story that we've all grown up with, imagining who Anakin Skywalker was? You saw so many things in Phantom Menace that you just imagined, like the Jedi Council, and none of it really was what I had expected. But I know now that that's just like how creative George is. Like, he just sees it differently, and he's laying it down. And I love the lightsaber fight with Darth Maul, not because it's a lightsaber fight, but because George is so good at crafting why that fight's important every time. In Phantom Menace, you're watching these two Jedi in their prime fight this evil villain. What's at stake is really how Anakin's going to turn out, because Qui-Gon is different than the rest of the Jedi, and you get that in the movie, and Qui-Gon is fighting because he knows he's the father that Anakin needs. He's fighting for Anakin, and that's why it's the duel of the fates. It's the fate of this child, and depending on how this fight goes, Anakin is his life's going to be dramatically different. So Qui-Gon loses, of course. So the father figure, because he knew what it meant to take this kid away from his mother when he had an attachment, and he's left with Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan trains Anakin at first out of a promise he makes to Qui-Gon, not because he cares about him. When they get Anakin, when they find him on Tatooine, he says, why do I feel like we've found another useless life form? He's saying, this is a waste of our time. Why are we doing this? Why do you see importance in these creatures? 10-year-old boy, this is useless. So he's a brother to Anakin eventually, but he's not a father figure. That's a failing for Anakin. He doesn't have the family that he needs. He loses his mother in the next film. He fails on this promise that he made to mother, I will come back and save you. So he's left completely vulnerable And Star Wars ultimately is about family. Films of the prequels hangs on, is that one particular fight. And Maul, that follows all the way through to the line which terrified me as a kid when the Emperor tells Luke, "You, like your father, are now mine." And the idea when I was a little kid watching that movie of some evil person possessing my father, making him be evil was terrifying. That was what saves Luke, is his ability to look at all that and look at his father and say, no, I'm going to throw away this weapon. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to let that go and be selfless. And he says, you know, I'm a Jedi like my father before me. But what he's really saying, and why I connect so powerfully to it, is like he's saying, I love my father. And Anakin then in that moment has to decide to be the father that he's never had and save his son. That's the selfless act that he does in return for his son. And that's what saves him in turn. So the son said, the father says his son. And it works out perfectly. And I draw that line all the way from Phantom Menace to Jedi. That's the story of Star Wars. Everything about X-Wings. It's not about all the things we decorate Star Wars in. It's important. It's part of the genius of it. But we soulfully react like, we don't just want an action movie. We want to feel uplifted. And Star Wars is an adventure that makes you feel good. It makes me feel like I want to be a part of that. So that's what I always go back to with Star Wars, is this selfless act and this family dynamic, which is so important to George, so important to the foundation of Star Wars. George has this hopeful story, and it's something that he's reiterated most times I've seen him, you know, after we've been making things without him, is remember to make these stories hopeful. Remember to give that to kids because they really need it. And so that's just something to keep in mind.
And it was only released recently that he is like creative head. And you can feel that. Not with the Book of Boba Fett though. You can tell which episodes in that seasons were his. I think
Favreau
take a back seat. I think he's basically burned himself out. And I think Filoni always needs to be on the periphery. He needs to be there because he is the eyes and ears, and he is the natural heir of Star Wars and everything Lucasfilm. And Dave Filoni understands the Star Wars mythos beautifully. He understands so much about the prequels and what George intended. And George isn't that forthcoming. Also, his sources and origin stories for different ideas, whether Vader, Anakin, Luke, it differs. It does differ. So sometimes you can't really take Lucas on face value because he contradicts himself. But all of that amassed information and knowledge and the sowing of the seeds, it's taken a long time for Kathleen Kennedy to water and see all of it come to fruition. And when they did Clone Wars, the final season, it felt like, okay, Dave, we're going to give you this. And then they realised, holy shit, by the numbers, by the demographics, people fucking love this. It was a long time in the making for audiences to warm to the Clone Wars. I'm not here to review the Clone Wars, but I will just give you a short summary of my feelings.
So you say. Do it!
It does everything that Lucas wanted to do. It is the war in Star Wars. The Clone Wars is, you know, the second word in that title. Wars. We actually see the wars, the politics, and everything Lucas was mocked, vilified, and bullied about. It's all inherent in those animated series. Politics, messages, allegory, big action, but done better because you have a longer, broad canvas, a serialisation. For me, I preferred the Clone Wars when it was a serialisation of one certain storyline. I didn't like the Monster of the Week episodes. I didn't really get into that, and some of the other episodes completely contradict Star Wars lore as we know it. But, you know, when it comes to continuity, it's a little bit... People do discount it, but going forward, a lot of the continuity here is canon. And that's a big word when it comes to continuity of important IPs. Canon! Whether they stick to it is another matter. But the Bad Batch was introduced in the final season, and obviously this was a thing that was developed way before the cancellation and the sale of Lucasfilm. They also had a half-finished season, and they put that out as the lost season. And this almost felt like Kathleen was like, yeah, whatever, I'll give this to you because the fans want it. Because they kind of wrapped everything up with Star Wars Rebels, which I came to love for its storytelling and world building. For the animation, it improved. The more you watch it and you're stuck with it, which you are stuck with it, if you're going to be dedicated to almost 21 episode season of something, you have to stick with it and you will eventually fall in love with it. It's a little bit like being kidnapped by someone and they hold you hostage for so long, you end up falling in love with them and think that everything they're doing to you is justified. It's a little bit like that.
Oh, no.
And the Bad Batch really resonated, and it was a premise that was really, again, devised between Filoni and Lucas, and it's personified here, and it is sensational. The writing is amazing. Everything that you knew that Lucas wanted to allude to or build off within those prequel films, it's exemplified, but to a great degree. What I love about the Bad Batch is the Bad Batch themselves. Hunter is a really strong lead as the clone troopers. There's been a lot of complaint about each of the clones. There's not much disparity. Oh, there's a big muscle one. Oh, there's a tech-savvy one. There's someone who's a hybrid tech-savvy person, but also a soldier.
You know who we are.
Hunter,
Let's go.
Echo,
Hyperdrive's online.
Tick,
Prepping to jump.
Wrecker,
Let's blow something up. Yeah!
and Crosshair.
Your move. Ha! We're all you need.
And the story is focused on their sister, a sister clone who is more and as close to a Jango Fett as Boba Fett is. And there's a whole story going on there, but so much is offloaded in here, but it doesn't feel like it's a weight. It's handled with precision, and that's because they don't go for a monster of the week thing. And if they are going in that semblance, a whole through line of a narrative is weaved in and out. Masterful writing. And this isn't just Dave Filoni, it's also
Jennifer Corbett, or Jennifer Corbett, who is the head writer of this series.
team of their writers and the directing, and this is the most cinematic. It's obvious that the tone and the aesthetic and that Thunderbirds-esque CGI animation look is perfected. The fluidity of the performances, I can tell, is being sourced from some motion capture. We know this because in the final season they mocapped Ray Park in his fight sequence with Ahsoka Tano, and they used motion capture as, you know, the perfect fluidity and physical anatomy and, you know, fluctuations and physicality that animators really sometimes can't replicate, even as good as they are. And you can feel that has been sourced and used in this series, because the fluidity and the motions of these animated characters, specifically when they're suited and booted, when they're in their clone uniforms or stormtrooper uniforms, you can really tell that there's sourced references that have been translated into these models. It's ingenious, it's gorgeous, it's the most cinematically lit. And that's what I loved about Clone Wars. It was lit like it was a theatrical movie, and the camera work. This, much so. Also, the score by Kevin Kiner. So many people will complain of, it's not John Williams enough. Oh, it's not Ludwig Göransson enough. Oh, what the fuck was that Boba Fett theme? Oh! Dum, dum, dum. Brilliant. Sourcing themes, but extrapolating them and modifying them. And it has a real electronic synth edge to it. Not synth in that 80s way, but in a modernistic bass booming way. But it doesn't detract from the visuals. Everything is so cumbersome and all together. It's amazing. I love it, and I am amazed that we have a season 2 coming. But everything that you feel that was lost in a rapidly rushed final season, because that was it. This is the Clone Wars. You're going to get it, a little bit more money. Lucas animation team will come on board. You don't have the Disney Channel budget, Disney XD, whatever the fuck it is. You are working now by your own means and siphoning this new revenue of money. It's not like they don't have money to achieve these grand feats. Fuck me, George Lucas helped pioneer CGI and, you know, animation. He was one half of the men who was like, Pixar is going to be a thing, but I'm washing my hands of it because Steve Jobs is an asshole.
Wait!
What I love about this is continuing the legacy of Lucas and doing right by him, but also doing right by the storylines. I love the attenuation and the detail of that transition after Order 66, and a transition for people across the galaxy, their political agendas, their changing ideologies, their changing standings in their place in this universe and in this Reich-like authoritarian fascist state, which is the Galactic Empire. It's such good writing. The animation is great. Sometimes the animation's a little skew-whiff, but every episode so far I've been engaged, engrossed, and no diversion. I am in it, and I am within it, and it is the most beautifully Star Wars thing you can get, and I am a lover of the prequels. I am always a prequel apologist. I was introduced to this world with the prequels. The first person that I ever knew of a name was George Lucas. I always said, I want to be George Lucas, meaning I want to be artistic, whether I want to write, whether I want to direct, which is a thing I still want to do. Believe it or not, I want to direct a Transformers movie. Michael Bay, I love you, bro. So, Lucas knows that there were flaws in the prequels.
It's bold in terms of jerking people around, but I may have gone too far in a few places.
As he stated, he also didn't give a fuck. He was making it more for himself than the fans.
That the critics are not going to like this new movie.
Oh, I'm not worried at all.
And I liked his attitude on it.
I mean, when they go after your writing, your directing, it has to hurt.
Oh, it always hurts.
Did you not say ever to yourself, well, maybe they had a point with this or with that?
The point is, you paint your house white, and somebody comes along, well, that should be a greenhouse. Well, fine, but I wanted to paint it white. I don't think there's anything wrong with painting it white. I don't think there's anything wrong with me for painting it white. Maybe it should be a greenhouse. But I didn't want it to be a greenhouse. I wanted it to be a White House.
I think he kind of, grew to hate the thing that he created. He was a experimental filmmaker before he, typified and archetypalized what it means to make a big Hollywood blockbuster. But he still loves that world. He still wants to experiment in that world. And I think that's the whole sociological, political strata, to make it feel real world in this, a galaxy far, far away. And he got criticised, he got slammed because of some of the lines, like, I don't like sand. It's coarse and rough. Like me, Padme.
Ow!
And it gets everywhere. And I do feel Lucas feels like he's being shut out. I mean, there's even an altercation on the red carpet at The Force Awakens where Kathleen Kennedy's husband, Frank Marshall, even jokingly was like,
My movie, are you? Jurassic is #1. Remember that.
To crush you like a bug.
my films are better than yours. And even though he's not involved in those making, he's like,
To crush you like a bug.
I'll squash you like a bug. It's fucking brilliant. Hilarious. But I do feel that he wants to barge into the office, not as a invite, as a courtesy call, but as a, I'm back and you're going to listen to me. But that's why the Dave Filoni connection is like that. He spent so many years developing things with him and he's so close to him. It's always going to come in. And instead of Kathleen Kennedy owning up to the flaws of neglect, she's like, okay, Dave, you can do what you want. I admit, go for it. But I'm not going to be seen to admit it. I'm just going to be seen to go, I have faith in you. You don't know fully well that this is a much skinnier version of George Lucas coming in. And a much more skilled person than George Lucas. That's just the fact. Dave Filoni is the George Lucas that the world deserves. But the George Lucas we have, we don't deserve.
Exactly.
Hey.
See, there's a whole dichotomy and contradiction going on here. But The Bad Batch, each episode I'm not bored by. It is strong. There's better episodes than others, but it is just sensational. And George Lucas, he just wants to go into a boardroom where, he's like, I'm actually meant to be at the head of the table, and there's Kathleen Kennedy, and he just wants to tell her to...
And I want you to get out of this office right now. No way.
You brought
You
brought it on yourself.
I don't want you here.
I'm so
Out.
sorry, George. I didn't think it would go like this.
Out.
Dad, I got your voucher.
Out!
Off skis. But The Bad Batch, if you've never been introduced to the Star Wars television series, I wouldn't start with The Bad Batch. I'd start with the Clone Wars series. Some of the animation is a little bit shonky, but as it develops and it blooms into something special, and it is cinematic. I've never seen animation made for television as cinematic as this, and this was before, the influx and popularity of streaming services. This now is benefiting from the streaming service revenue to enable that we get something like Star Wars, the Clone Wars, aesthetically, design-wise, then Rebels, which is a very well written series, but it's ugly and it was made on the cheap, and Filoni's heart was not in it as much as it was with the Clone Wars. There's still so much to tell within the Clone Wars world, and because of the popularity of Bad Batch, they were like, oh shit, we said it was the final season of the Clone Wars, and they're like, let's just make a spin-off. that's it. And all the stories you had built up and pre-planned for further seasons, put it in the bare batch. Simple. A simple methodology and function where Kathleen Kennedy's like, I fucked up.
Wait! Wait!
But I'm not going to admit it, but go do your thing. And I think Filoni's going to save the world of Star Wars. I hope so. It feels like it. And then we got Boba Fett. But anyway, a 5-star, massive 5-star series. Watch it. But invest your time and dedicate your time to the animated series. I hate it when critics of the movies and do like spoilers, and they're so like the Empire podcast, they're always like, we don't have time for that. For people who approach animation as pieces of art, why the fuck don't you do that, Empire podcast, instead of, you know, denying it like it's below you, or we ain't got the time to do that, but you've got enough time to watch 10 Marvel films a year. Get fucked. I love the Empire podcast, but sometimes they just contradict themselves and make themselves look stupid. Not as stupid as me. But anyway, remember to like, share, maybe comment, and ultimately subscribe to Articulate Warbling, the Bad Batch. Mwah, 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 mwah. Beautiful. Put it in the bad bed.
I may have gone too far.